Hi, I'm Dr. Broussard with the Waggin Trained Veterinary Clinic, and in today's segment we're going to discuss how can you tell if your cat is nearing the end of his or her life. We get questions about that quite often, so my assistant Cole and I have put together a list of some of the most commonly asked questions. We're going to run through those to hopefully give you a better understanding of this topic. Cole?
Dr. Broussard, how do I evaluate my senior cat's quality of life?
I get asked this question probably more than anything else, is how do you know what their quality of life is? And I think the best way I can answer it is does your cat still do the things that they've always enjoyed doing? Does your cat still do the things that made them your cat, for lack of a better word? It's different for every animal. Some cats enjoy eating, some enjoy chasing toys, some enjoy chasing a laser, some like to sit at a window and wish they could chase the sparrows or squirrels outside. Whatever it is, can your animal still enjoy the day-to-day routines that is its life? Do they still behave the same way? Do they still get excited for the same things? If those things happen, then I would say that animal probably still has a fair quality of life. There's variations with everything, guys, of course, but that's probably the biggest tangible message that I try to convey to people is it's that. They're gonna lose weight as they age. They're gonna maybe not eat as much. Maybe they drink a little more. Those are all factors as well, but at the end of the day, when we're making an end-of-life decision, it's can they still do the things that they've always enjoyed to do.
What are the signs my cat is dying?
I mean, yeah, it's a tricky one to answer. So I will simply say this. I'm gonna focus on the literal act of dying, and I know that's grim, but like if this question is intended to cover things such as maybe my cat is passing away at my home now with me, I would expect to see things like a cat that is no longer responsive. Number one, they're usually laterally recumbent, laying on their side, but you can't rouse them. They're breathing, all that good stuff, of course, but you can't rouse them. They don't respond if you call their name. There's what's called a palpebral reflex. You can touch by their eye like that. They blink just like we should. You start seeing a diminish or a lack of a palpebral reflex, things like that. Yeah, not very good signs. Sometimes severe dehydration if you can pick up their skin and they have a very prolonged skin tint time. That's not an end of life sign, but most cats that are at that point usually are going to be severely dehydrated. And then I would think the last, and I mean the very last that you may see, and hopefully you won't see it at a home setting, would be what we call agonal breathing. That is sometimes anytime an animal passes, whether they're passing on their own or if it's something that we've assisted them with, oftentimes they will take these very, very deep breaths right at the end as they're passing. Again, kind of a grim topic, guys, but these are some of the things that you would be looking for at the absolute end stages of life. Yeah.
How do I know if my cat is in pain?
Well, thankfully, that's not as grim of a question to answer. So pain can be as simple as vocalization. It can be carrying their body posture differently. If it's arthritic type pain, it'll be carrying themselves differently. Maybe they're hunched back, maybe they're walking with real short steps because it hurts to walk. Maybe it's that you go to pick them up or you touch them in a certain area and then they either vocalize or they try to bite at you or something like that. And sometimes it's even not so much those things, but it can be that if they're painful in one spot, they're going to lick or bite at that area a lot because it hurts and they can't figure out why and they don't understand it, so they just want to lick and lick and lick or bite at that area. It's a little tricky, but those are probably the most common 3 or 4 signs I would think with a cat.
What is the difference between hospice and palliative care for my senior cat?
Yeah, and that's a truly a good question, and I'll be honest with you, one that I had to look up myself to get the answer. But so the way I know it now and the way I think of it is this: palliative care is when you are trying to control the pain or suffering of an animal, but there is still hope of a recovery or a cure. Whereas hospice care is still, the ultimate goal is to try to make an animal comfortable, to remove whatever pain and suffering that cat might be going through. But with hospice care, typically there is no chance of a resolution or a cure. You have reached the end of your treatment options and you're just trying to make the cat comfortable until they pass or can be put down.
What is euthanasia for a senior cat?
Well, euthanasia would be us as veterinarians easing the passing of said cat, or maybe not easing, but causing the passing. Like there are drugs that we use injectably that will, there's no polite way to put it, but that will stop the heart. of a cat, and obviously in their life that way. It's very humane, it's very quick, it's very peaceful. It is quite literally an overdose of an anesthetic, so there's no pain involved with it. It's just, again, when we know that an animal, a cat in this case, is at the end of its life and there's nothing else we can do, there's no point in allowing that animal to suffer and to die a long, drawn-out, painful death. There's no point in that at all. So it's our responsibility as veterinarians to ease that suffering, and that's how it's done.
How can I tell if it is time to euthanize my cat?
Honestly, reference the above questions I just answered, and it's not always, in fact, it very seldom is just sitting around waiting and looking for those signs, like, oh, I'm not going to take my cat in. Oh, but there's that breathing he was talking about. No, I mean, the reality is most of these cats are going to show you much more subtle early signs, and you're probably going to take the cat to your veterinarian, have them checked, have maybe lab work or x-ray, whatever it takes to diagnose what the underlying problem is. So again, with that information, with the advice of your veterinarian and their staff, a group decision will typically be made of what treatment options are. And again, euthanasia is usually the last thing that we can do to ease their suffering. So once all other treatment options have been exhausted and there is no improvement or the animals continue to decline, typically that's when the time the time for euthanasia, has come. So yeah. I know, hard to answer that one. That's a tough question. Is that it? No.
Would it be better to let my senior cat pass away on its own?
Ooh. Yeah, I guess I get asked that one every now and then as well too. Guys, the simple answer is no. I can't really justify a reason for me to say that that's better. I've been doing this for over 20 years, and I can count, maybe not on one hand, but probably on two hands, how many times an animal has died peacefully on their own at home. It just doesn't happen very often. They fight, man. They hang on. They just don't let go the way that we would want them to let go. So oftentimes it stinks, but we as veterinarians and sometimes you as owners have to make that hard decision for them. But honestly, I encourage people to think of it not as being cruel, not as being, because I struggle with that. Like, what gives me the right to do that? What gives me the power and the right to decide if an animal lives or dies? It's a weird power to yield. But I've come to realize that it's the last bit of love that we can give them. It really is, because again, with all the answers I've just given, I mean, when you know that the end is there and there's nothing else you can offer and there's nothing that's going to make this animal turn around, isn't it more kind to let them go with dignity, pain-free, in a controlled, loving setting where their owner can be right there with them, holding them, talking to them? I'd like to go that way. I hope that can be done for me. One day, if and I know it can't, but who wouldn't want to pass that way in that situation? So yeah, I think it is much more feasible and humane for the animal to ease them in their passing, as opposed to drawing it out and just waiting for them to pass at home. So okay, all right. Well, grim subject today, but I think it needed to be done. So guys, if you have any more questions about any of that, you want to reach out to us, please do so. Facebook, email, our website, or you can just call us. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.